If any of you hear a weird purring sound again, I invite you to text me directly. Cho says you have my number. It's 510-648-9560. You can also go to the website intromeditation.com. My telephone number's there. So please text me if there's any audio quality issues. All right, so I'd like to talk about eating next. So mindful eating is its own thing. There's books out there, there's videos out there. For some people who are recovering from eating disorder issues, it becomes maybe the central practice for them. The basic idea is no computer, no phone. You can eat mindfully with another person, but perhaps no conversation, no reading, no music, no radio, and just pay attention to the richness of the sensations of eating. When Shinzen teaches it, I think he asks that we be aware of the driver sensations of eating, like the biological urge to nourish ourselves, the desire for another delicious bite, maybe taking the time to enjoy the pleasure of eating as it moves through our body, just the simple, immediate sensations of eating in our mouth as we experience them. And again, how those impact the rest of the body, how those spread. So if you want to learn more about that, obviously there's resources out there. That can be part of your workday. Having your lunch or a snack be something that you do mindfully. I want to talk about commuting. Commuting is one of those things we have to do anyway, and it's nice to arrive refreshed at our destination, to start our workday fresh and end it by letting go. So I bifurcate commuting into two main groups. Are we the driver or are we not? Are we driving a car or are we riding on a train, bus, plane, ferry boat, etc.? Someone else's car. Either way, if we're going to use it as a meditation opportunity, we want to have no phone use, no music, no audio or podcasts, no conversations. Obviously, those are things that we can have going on around us, but we don't want to be intending to consume that content or generating it ourselves. I mean, I meditate on the train into work and back. And, there's conversations going on all around me often, and noises and billboards and stuff, but I don't intend to attend to those things. So I think when mindfulness while commuting, meditating formally, I think it's important to pay attention to our posture, to sit as upright as possible. Obviously, sitting cross-legged on a cushion will probably be more of an upright posture than sitting on a bus. You might call attention to yourself to sit on a bus, and the seat just isn't designed for that. I will say that one thing I've experimented with on airplanes is rolling up, getting a blanket, rolling it up and putting it behind my back so I can sit upright. So that's one particular vehicular experience where I really do pay attention to having a really upright posture. But usually on a train or a bus, my posture is a little less formally upright than when I sit on a cushion. The best technique that I've found is focus out, which I assume you as Shin heads know is to bring my attention to seeing the world outside of me, hearing sounds, real-time sounds, external, and the way my body touches the environment. And if I'm drawn into emotions or thinking, to pull my attention back to the external world. I think it may be helpful for a person to have done that practice enough on the cushion, or at least differentiating see in and hear in a world of thoughts, that one knows when one is internally activated enough to not get caught in it and bring one's attention back. I once had a one-on-one client who would ride a tram, and he was new to meditation, and he would freak out because he was trying to absorb into the breath, and he would get kind of panicky feelings. And I said to him, well, that the train he was riding wasn't necessarily safe. There might be, I think there were kind of sketchy people on it. So I said to him, you don't, in your bedroom with the front door locked, you can absorb into the breath and let the outside world disappear. That's probably not a good idea on a train with sketchy people. So that's one reason why Focus Out is a great technique. You are real-time. You might lose your conceptual thinking ability to some extent, but if a sketchy person's coming up to you, you can hear and see them. Another great practice is feel all, feel in and feel out. That's one I do a lot. And if attention is drawn to see in or hear in, to the inner world, to just sort of feel that in my body as feel in. Another great technique is hear out. Just listen to the sounds, conversations, announcements. I'm thinking of the train that I ride, the sound of the train, people play music, whatever. Just have that all be waves of energy. One practice that's helpful for both driving a car and being on a commute vehicle is loving-kindness practice, to use as a concentration object a warm-hearted feeling of goodwill. Yeah, so those are some great practices to try. Focus Out is a really great one for driving also. I don't know if I mentioned that. It's not just riding a commute vehicle. Focus Out actually makes one, I think, a safer driver. So we want to let go of temptations from non-consensual words, billboards, other people talking. Just hear all that as waves of energy. I think, obviously, being a passenger is superior to driving yourself. Your body can settle more because you don't have to use it to move the way you do when you drive. You can close your eyes, which leads to greater concentration. If you want to get into a trance, if you want to kind of lose your ability to kind of manage something, which happens obviously sometimes in meditation without intending to, then there's no real negative consequences relative to driving. Going back to the settled posture, I sometimes can't get a seat, so I hang by a strap on the trains during rush hours. And as may be obvious, I've noticed it's harder for my body to settle than it does when I'm sitting in a seat. So sometimes I even give myself permission to be a little selfish. I mean, if there's a pregnant lady or someone with a cane, obviously I'll give them the seat. But, I'll kind of dash in ahead of another able-bodied person because I think, well, I'm doing this to really be a better person, my meditation practice. So I give myself a little permission to grab the seat because my meditation gets deeper in a seat than standing up. I talked. We at the end we talked about how work grabs our attention more at the end of the first session, and something I've heard Shinzen talk about quite a bit. I'll put it in my own words: is meditation sometimes makes things worse before it gets better. He uses the simile of lancing a boil, which he did when he was young. One way I put it is, you're on a hill and you see a mountaintop, and you want to get to the mountaintop, and you have to walk through a dark valley to get there. Or you have a washing machine, and you want to get your clothes clean, but the water in the washing machine gets dirtier before the clothes get cleaner. So meditation can be disorienting when we first engage a specific technique or practice at all. There's doors that meditation will open inside of us that are closed for a reason, because the content behind that door can be challenging or disorienting or overwhelming. So I think that's why meditation in the workplace can be a delicate thing. There's all these mindfulness consultants promising you it's going to make your work life so much better, but as Shinzen points out, meditation on an industrial strength level creates industrial strength results, which can bring up trauma, can bring up all sorts of difficult things. And I think that's important to realize with mindfulness in the workplace, that we're playing with real energies within a person. And I think it's important to remember when meditating while driving or out in public. Be careful with that. If you start to get into a trance or feel weird while driving, back off. Go back to your normal way of driving and work more on the cushion to break up that material. Same thing with in the workplace. If you have to get a deliverable done or you're talking to your boss, that might not be the best. Or if you're at home chopping with a knife or picking up the baby, those might not be the best times to do a challenging new mindfulness technique. It might be better to do that while just simply raking or working on a mindless spreadsheet. Sometime that the consequences of getting emotionally overwhelmed, going into a trance, having racing energy, whatever, are less dire. I think self-driving cars will be nice because then we can always meditate, even while in a car. What else would I say? Well, one thing I've noticed is that when I'm on the commuter vehicle, my train, if I have all three focus out senses open, it creates a world for me. I feel like I'm a person riding a train in the world on my way to work. I'm a worldling. I don't feel a metacognition. I don't feel the y-axis openness. When I narrow it down to two senses, I feel more like there's a vast open space around within which different sensory experiences arise, i.e. I'm meditating, quote unquote. So what I often do is I'll close my eyes. I often feel safe enough that I can do that, or I'll put in earplugs. So I'm just seeing and feeling my body. Obviously, I can't get rid of body sensations. So that's what I do. I think, after I come back from a retreat and I'm in that space more than I am in my usual everyday life, I can have my eyes open, my ears open, and feel my body and create a sense of realizing that there's pure consciousness creating seeing, hearing, and feeling a body rather than getting caught in it. But I can't always do that. Have to simplify sometimes. So the next topic is, as was brought up earlier, dual awareness. I think the two techniques I've worked with the most towards being aware while working on a computer are being aware of my breath and what Shinzen calls noting body sensations. I think he calls it labeling body sensations with free float, which is just to, well, I don't label, I note, which is to say I try and hold my attention in certain places and deeply feel them. And that's something I can do at times while coding or writing emails. Just notice, is there any place where my attention in my body feels, where the energy feels tight and caught? Bring my attention there, open it. So that's dual awareness because we are doing something, but also maintaining a meta-awareness. Say, somatically, how can we bring a greater y-axis, greater openness to our experience of the moment? Some people are able to keep that going all day. That's not what I do. When I lived in the monastery, I did. I was pretty much aware of my body and the speed of my thinking all day. But in secular life, I don't have that strong of a practice. The breath especially can be an anchor in busy, stressful, and confusing times. When you get into an argument with someone or you're in a traffic jam, it's nice to have a breath practice that you've established that can keep that y-axis broad, where you're in the world but not of the world. It can help you slow down and create spaciousness and equanimity with things getting hard on the x-axis in sort of objective reality. It can restore your center and have you less controlled by circumstances. Have your mind rest on and enjoy your breathing as you go through your day. Here's a quote by a Sufi saint, Abu Sa'id ibn Abi Takir. The true saint goes in and out amongst the people and eats with them and buys and sells in the market and marries and takes part in social interactions, but never forgets God for a single moment. So that's a monotheistic way of saying, stays high on the y-axis. Zen Master Wang Bo said, do not withdraw yourself from events in your daily life, but never let them bind you. There are people that are aware of their breath 100% of the time. Apparently, there was a Burmese master that one of my teachers, Zen teachers, worked with who said, "How many times did you breathe yesterday?" That's quite a question, huh? Like, I guess he was supposed to give a number in the tens of thousands, or I don't know, however many. So that's pretty far out, the idea of that. So I don't think, like Shinzen gives us a lot of challenging stories of extreme practice. We don't need to do that extreme of practice to be inspired by it as a way to remember our breath. So Chogyam Trungpa, one of the people that brought Tibetan Buddhism to America, founded the Shambhala lineage and the Naropa Institute. Here's a quote by him. "Your life and your commitment to the practice of meditation is not a matter of a patch here and a patch there that you're trying to sew together. Your life is committed to meditation overall, like a blanket. It is from midnight to the next midnight. Your life is completely saturated with the practice of meditation. When you're eating, you eat mindfully. When you're washing your dishes, you're right there with it, right on the spot. It's a matter of being on the spot with everything in that way. From this point of view, it is a life commitment, a 24-hour job." So like with everything, we can build up to that. It's like working out. We don't want to try and bench press 500 pounds immediately or take 5 Pilates classes back to back. We can start with 1 Pilates class or bench pressing 100 pounds. With our mindfulness practice, we take incremental steps. Like with the challenge sequence that I started the class with, it's easier with manual labor, which is why Eastern and Western monasteries focus on sweeping and mopping and raking, chopping vegetables and chopping wood, gardening, farming, altar cleaning, walking, doing dishes, cleaning buildings. I remember I was at Tassajara Monastery, and they had me chop garlic, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I have to pay so much attention so that my hands don't smell all day. And you can buy minced garlic. It's not, they can afford it. It's not expensive. I was like, oh, the reason why they're having me do this is because I have to pay attention so my hands don't smell all day. It was simple, repetitive action and motion that I could bring mindfulness to, a lot more than I could an emotionally challenging conversation. So it was relatively low down on the challenge sequence. So that's why monasteries start people in simple manual labor, because you're not on the cushion, but you are in motion. And eventually we can build up to coding or doing a cost projection or an expense sheet, and keeping that mindfulness, as our practice matures. I would say meetings and lectures are an excellent time to be aware of body and breath, to notice thinking, maybe even to go into a slight trance state where you replace engagement of content and it just becomes like Charlie Brown's teacher, waves of energy, wah, 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 wah. Of course, when there's no real world consequences to that, when no one's going to call on you and ask you to give your thoughts. All right. One aspect of dual awareness is posture. Some of you might be familiar with the Zen phrase shikantaza, which is Japanese for just sitting. The basic idea, in Japanese Zen, that phrase means a lot of different things. Basically means meditating without a technique. But one way that shikantaza is interpreted is just sit there and be aware of your posture. Take an upright, perfect posture, and then just feel that for the meditation period. Zen monasteries are filled with activities like bowing, working in robes with huge long sleeves, or always entering rooms with your stepping in with your left foot, that call for awareness of your body and space. I think in my company we have an ergonomic focus, so it's like, are your feet resting comfortably on something, the floor or a footrest? I think awareness of the body as we go through the day is a wonderful thing. And again, I feel blessed by my company that they kind of encourage that as a way of reducing tension in the body and as a way of reducing RSIs, to notice is a person tensing up such that they're going to start irritating a nerve and get disabled. Mindfulness of the body is one of the easiest ways to stay present in life. We can be mindful of our body while we read, exercise, socialize. We can be in the body as we move, as we turn, as we wait. Practice feeling what's there. Being aware of our spine is one of the most crucial parts of posture and body awareness. I think for much of my life, based on my retreat experience, I try and sit cross-legged when I can. I can't really do that at my work chair, but if I'm hanging out with friends in a social gathering, that's a great way to take that upright posture and be aware of my spine. Just being aware of extended spine, musculature, open and relaxed posture can bring a profound transformation in our mind and body, just that by itself. Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, who founded the SF Zen Center, San Francisco Zen Center, much beloved teacher, he apparently said, try always to keep the right posture, i.e. extended spine, not only when you practice meditation, but in all your activities. Take the right posture when you're driving your car and when you're reading. The great Burmese master Mahasi Sayadaw said, try to be aware of your posture in daily life, aware of small deportments and postures like stretching, bending, and where you look, both the physical and the mental, volitional, intentional aspects of moving. So some people consider Tai Chi and yoga to be forms of meditation because there's a lot of awareness of posture there. I think that's one reason why sports are great. You're aware of your body's movement through space. It's one of the pleasures of sex. I have friends that are actors in plays, and there's something called blocking, which is being aware of your posture, your orientation towards the other actors on the stage and the furniture, etc., and the audience. All right. So posture is something that we can be aware of in meetings, while talking to people, while working at our computer, while walking from one building to another. Here's Chogyam Trungpa again. In your daily life, you should be aware of your posture, your head and your shoulders, how you walk, and how you look at people. Even when you are not meditating, you can maintain a dignified state of existence. So how can you bring alignment, balance, relaxation, and openness to every moment? How can you continuously relax and let go of tension? Being aware of your body's, what's the word? Spacing the word for awareness of proprioceptive. Your proprioceptive awareness, awareness of how your body on the inside feels in 3 dimensions. There's very few activities of life that you cannot bring awareness of posture to. But obviously, like the challenge sequence, it's easier in some circumstances than others. So let's say we want to have this dual awareness. We want to be anchored in posture, body sensations, or breath. How do we do that? Well, I'd say the easiest way to do that is to have formal practice and to sit on a cushion. It's sort of like when it's time to get on the playing field and play your sport, it helps to have practiced. If you want to play your musical instrument, it helps to have practiced your scales. The recital and the game support the practice, and the practice supports the recital or the game. Here's a Shinzen Young quote. There are 2 ways that people can fool themselves. One is, I have to sit in a certain posture and have the body perfectly aligned in order to meditate. Silence, formal practice. The second, though, is I don't ever need to sit in a posture like that. I just meditate in daily life. The way to know if you're meditating in action is to see if you can stop on a dime at any time that you want. You should be able to go at any time into an absolutely stable, motionless state without struggle if you're really meditating in daily life. So meditating on a cushion in the morning or the night can positively affect your mindfulness in daily life during your workplace, and vice versa. It's sort of like if a person, they, instead of driving their car, they bike to the store. And they help their friends move furniture. And take the stairs instead of the elevator. That's going to make it easier when you do your cardio or your weightlifting. And doing your cardio and your weightlifting makes it easier to take the stairs or help your friend move furniture. So it is with our mindfulness and our meditation practice. Formal practice helps with informal practice and vice versa. I'm actually realizing everyone on this call probably realizes that, but it bears repeating. So hopefully many of you know who Sri Ramana Maharshi is. I think people who pay attention to this say that he's probably the most purely enlightened being of recent history. Now, who knows who the Buddha was or who Master Dogen was, but of the last, say, 300 years, he apparently just had such a sweet disposition, and it was peaceful just even to be around him in silence. Ethically pure, and at the same time, just vast, open, loving space around him. So his writings are phenomenal for me to read, giving a taste of ultimate liberation. Here's a quote by Sri Ramana. The life of action need not be renounced. There's no conflict between work and wisdom. If you meditate for an hour or two every day, you can then carry on with your duties. The same line with which you take in meditation will then be expressed in your activities. As you go on, you will find that your attitude towards people, events, and objects gradually changes. Your actions will tend to follow your meditations of their own accord. If you meditate in the right manner, then the currents of mind induced will continue to flow even in the midst of your work. A person who is advancing will begin to enjoy the deeper beatitude, whether he is at work or not. While his or her hands are in society, you keep your head cool in solitude. I like that. Beautiful words. So, new subject. I think it can help to put something in our space that reminds us of our higher aspirations. I think a relatively low consciousness manner of that some of my coworkers do is they put cute little figurines or movie posters in their cubicles, and I think that reminds them of a different side of themselves, like a more fun or informal or free to be human side of themselves, so that they can remember that. I think people put pictures of their kids and spouses and parents in their cubicles, and I think that's to remind them of love. And maybe with your kids, why you're doing that work. To inspire you that you're working for a higher purpose. To give to other people. I think there can be inspirational pictures and slogans, like the classic 70s kitten hanging from a branch, hang in there. I mean, that's a little, negative or assuming that work is a grind, but people have post phrases up on their walls that are positive and remind you of a larger identity, or remind you to stay mindful. I often have sheets of affirmations next to my desk, not always in work cubicles, but my desk at home, to remind me of what my intentions are, what kind of person I want to be, not letting circumstances just pull me into negative mind states or getting compressed and tight on the y-axis. Some people have pictures of Buddha or a little statue or Jesus or other religious inspiring figures to remind them of being high on the y-axis, to remind them of pure love, pure awareness, the larger picture. So sometimes your physical space, as you set it up, can help you have a higher intention and to remind you with your practices. New subject. Mindfulness practice in the modern workplace is often sold in terms of emotional intelligence and interpersonal effectiveness. So, I asked one of my friends who he does about 4 retreats a year and he manages a team of 200, an engineering team. So he's a pretty hardcore meditator. He thought of ordaining as a priest for a while, and he's a pretty hardcore responsible employee, someone with a real career. And I asked him yesterday his thoughts about this subject. I said, I'm going to teach this class. What are your thoughts? One thing he emphasizes the collaborative nature of work, that our waking up in the workplace is not just us. It's waking up socially. It's the impact we have on people, the impact they have on us, the field that we all create together. So if we aim to be spiritual people, mindful people, people with a higher intention, people high on the y-axis, people that emanate vast spaciousness and sort of a warm-heartedness, what practices can we do interpersonally? I would say deep listening. Not just listening for content, how does this pertain to me? Is there any actionable items here for me? Can I ignore this person? But this person speaking to me or speaking to this group, how does the world look to them? How is it to be them? I think that's important for empathy, to really see how it is to be another person as a way of feeling close to them, emotional intimacy. And also just for work functionality. I mean, if a person gives you, what would you call it, requirements for a project, and you don't fully understand them, and then you start the project and they say, no, I wanted something different. This is really meant to solve a different problem. Well, then, there's a lot of, you've gotten yourself in trouble, there's extra work and stress for people. It's helpful to understand the requirements right off the bat. I assume you'd all agree with that. And sometimes that means really deeply listening to what a person's needs seem to be, what it is that they're actually asking of you. When Shinzen does teacher training, he emphasizes the thing a person is asking as a meditation student is not always what they're actually asking, your first understanding of it. And it helps to do reflective listening when a person asks a question in a meditation class environment to make sure that you're actually getting how the world looks to this person, what's important to them, how they feel, what it is that's wanting to be unraveled within them. So I think that helps in the workplace. How does the world look to this person such that they're speaking to you in this way? What matters to them? What's the energy inside their body? It's interesting, in the ancient Buddhist scriptures, the suttas, if you stack them, both the long-form suttas, the medium-length discourses, and the short discourses, it's about a foot tall. There's a lot of them. And they weren't all said by the Buddha. I think a lot of them were said hundreds of years later and put into his mouth for the purpose of legitimacy. But whatever. There's a lot of ancient scriptures to Buddhism. And what's funny is meditation practice formally is only mentioned a couple places. And the classic one is the Satipatthana Sutta, the scripture on mindfulness. And what surprises a lot of modern people is that when the Buddha talks about body awareness, and I think thinking awareness too, he emphasizes don't just be aware of the breath inside your own body, be aware of it in the body of the people around you. That's just as important of a mindfulness practice he's assigning in the Satipatthana Sutta. So it's interesting, how, as you feel your own energetic body and are grounded there, what's the energetic body of the people around you? Tuning into that. Sometimes we can have a really marvelous influence on people around us. They say, what should I do about that coworker that's such a pain in the ass? Maybe you don't need to do anything. You just create a greater space around yourself, and that actually helps liberate the entire energetic field in your office. I mean, it's a little new agey. It's a little easier said than done, but it's something to play with. There's this practice in Tibetan, Tonglen, where you're a sponge to absorb the poison of the people around you. Right? If you're willing to be a big enough person to hold enough space, to be high on the y-axis, to hold all the pain and all the craziness and all the incompletion and all the stress of your entire workday and the people around you, if you're that big, you're a bodhisattva. You're someone who's having a marvelous influence on people without you even speaking a word. Next subject. Well, there's just straight up formal seated meditation in silence. You can do that during your lunch break. You can come in early. You can stay late. You can sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. I've sometimes just sat there in front of my computer with my eyes open and a coding development environment in front of me and just meditated. It looks like I'm looking at my code. A lot of places have break rooms or a huddle room where no one's in. We have a wellness room at my company. That's where I teach. And, it's often available for solo workouts and solo meditation. You can go there. One can go there. You can also start your own group. I met a woman who at the financial services company, Charles Schwab, She was, I think, half-time or full-time the mindfulness person for the company. That was her job. And how that started, she was, she had a normal job, some sort of functional, normal work function. And she led a sitting group, I think, once a month, then once a week, then a couple times a week. This was over decades. Then every day at lunch. Then she was called upon to engage in mindfulness before leadership development workshops and team building and safety days, and eventually it just became a big part of her job. And she took her own initiative to bring her own practice to the people around her and create that space, hold that space. Sometimes sitting groups are silent, sometimes they're guided, depending on the person calling them's teaching experience and skill level and interest. So something for people to consider. So we got plenty of time left, but I have one more subject, and then I guess we can open it up. Oh yeah, I also want us to do some focus out, since I talked about that for driving. So we'll do some of that. But actually, let's do some mindfulness before my final subject. So we'll sit for, let's say, 15 minutes. All right, so I invite you to find a posture that feels good to you. As Shinzen likes to say, take a moment to stretch up and settle in. When you're settled, maybe with your chest wide, your shoulders dropping, crown of your head lifted up, the bottom of your shoulder blades coming down your back. I invite you to take a couple intentionally deep breaths as a way of transitioning from concepts to formal practice. So you breathe deeply, landing in just this moment, just this experience. Noticing any tension or tightness anywhere in your body, places where the energy is not flowing, it's tangled up, stopped. Breathing in a sense of allowing and patience into those spots. Breathing out, letting that tension drain out of you, down into the ground. Breathing in a sense of kindness and friendliness. Any tension you notice inside of you. Breathing out like tar or gunk. Imagine that energy draining out of your body down into the ground. Mother Earth told me she'd hold it for you. Making a deal with yourself that for the next few minutes you'll do focus out meditation. This isn't a time to think, make plans. You're actually going to do the technique as best you're able. If thinking arises, that's fine, but we're here to formally practice. Let me set that vow. When you're ready, bring your attention to see out, hear out, and feel out. Maybe label inside your head where your attention is currently right now. Real-time seeing, trying not to get caught in making meaning out of what you're seeing, just letting the colors, the lines, the shapes play with your eyes. Real-time hearing, doing your best not to interpret sounds or think about where they're coming from. Just let it be a symphony of whatever sound you're hearing. Just receive. Welcome all sounds. In your body as it touches the environment. Feeling your clothes, feeling your butt on the chair or cushion. the air of the room on your face. If your attention is drawn to internal experiences, emotions, things happening inside your body, or seeing, hearing, thinking, I invite you to gently bring your attention back to focus on out. Again, feel free to label where your attention goes, floating within those 6. If your attention is drawn to emotions and thoughts, that's fine. We almost never have a completely clear mind. Just don't encourage it. Let it be. Say hi to it if necessary. Notice thinking and emotions. But as much as you have a choice, persistently and intentionally, but gently and patiently, bring your attention back to see out, hear out, and feel out. Concentration means intentionally bring our attention to focus out. Balancing doing and non-doing. The non-doing of letting everything be what it is, and the doing of pulling our attention out of the inner world. Doing that in a non-doing way. Clarity means having richly textured experience of hearing, seeing, and feeling your body touch the ground, touch your seat, touch your clothes. Noticing the details, having an intimate and rich, full experience of what it is to see, to hear, to feel. Equanimity means letting each thing be as it is, not grabbing after sounds or sights or body sensations, and not pushing them away. Let the experience come, let the experience go. Welcome all, hold on to nothing. Your attention may easily and fluidly flow between seeing and hearing and the touch of your body on your environment, or it may get caught in one of those three more than the others, or two, while not traveling much to the others. Feel free to let that be, whatever your balance is, and feel free to intentionally take a tour of all three if you notice that there's one or two that you're not visiting much. Intentionally have a sequence. Now I'm going to make sure to see. Now I'm going to make sure to hear. Now I'm going to make sure to feel my body. Either way is fine. If you are using a little bit of intention to move between the different senses, the three senses, maybe intentionally create some combos. Can you feel your clothes while looking? Can you feel your clothes while hearing? Can you hear and see? Feel free to play around with that. I invite you to cultivate a sense of spaciousness. Maybe a little bit more spaciousness around your seeing. A little bit more spaciousness around your hearing. A little bit more spaciousness around feeling your body. Great work, folks. All right. Let's see if I can do a Shinzen. Good. Great work, folks. I don't know how close that was. I didn't let you guys know that I speak more during guided meditations than Shinzen does, so that's how I lead them. I'm often leading to beginners who need instruction. Probably, I'm thinking most people on this call have done focus out meditation before. If that's your first experience with it, Shinzen has resources online, videos and writings, I believe, that explain more about those techniques. So it's a great technique. I invite you to look those up if this is your first time with it and you found it intriguing. Again, I included that technique as part of this class because getting strong with that technique, I feel like, is a great one for riding in a vehicle, driving, or being a passenger. For me, that's the best technique for driving because it brings you fully into the moment with the cars around you, the sights, the sounds, the touch of your hands on the steering wheel, etc. Once heard one person say, not only is driving meditation not dangerous, if you're not doing driving meditation, you're probably more dangerous because you're a little bit more in your thoughts than right there in the moment with what's happening. I suppose that technique's also good if you're in a meeting. You can really tune into the sights and sounds around you without getting caught in content. So my final subject, and then we'll open it up for discussion or questions, is beyond mindfulness. I asked my teacher, Gil Fronsdal, about this subject a week ago, and he said something I've heard him and other people say before, which is, in America, the engagement with the Buddhist path often starts with meditation and mindfulness. People have anxiety or depression or self-esteem issues or whatever, and meditation practice helps. It's a mental health thing, right? That's the doorway through which a lot of people enter meditation practice, or they have psychedelic experiences. And they say, this is so wonderful to have expanded consciousness. How can I stabilize this? Church School Magazine found actually quite a few American Buddhists start meditating for that reason. So it's a mental health thing. And the ideas of ethics and comportment come later. Whereas, I don't know how common knowledge this is, but in Asia, that's often the first step. And for many Asians, that's their only step, is ethics and I guess also devotional practice, which again, for many Americans comes later. So comportment and ethics and some of these other issues, where do they tie in with the workplace? In India, they have this idea, karma yoga. Karma yoga means every single action in life is a part of path of awakening, of an offering to the divine. So yeah, it goes beyond simple awareness. In Buddhism, the most important teaching in Buddhism is the Four Noble Truths. You're not as happy as you pretend to be. The reason why you're not happy is because you have impurities of mind. You could be radiantly and fully happy, high on the y-axis all the time, open and happy independent of circumstances, but you're going to have to work for it. That's my take on the Four Noble Truths. So the work for it, the Fourth Noble Truth, is divided into 8 parts. Using your speech in a kind and wise way, doing something for a living that helps the world, not hurting people through stealing or sexual, violence or rape. Those are subsumed under ethics. Those are grouped together under ethics. Then there's meditation as a mechanical action, concentrating your mind, using intentional mindfulness techniques, and bringing energy to your day and to your mindfulness practice. So those are subsumed under concentration. And then there's the practices of liberation, seeing things clearly and understanding things clearly. Wisdom, having an actual experience of seeing through the illusions that we usually have. So that's the final of the 3 trainings. The 3 trainings are the groupings of the Eightfold Path. So hopefully I haven't lost you. If I have, this is all over the internet. Eightfold Path and the 3 trainings. So the first of the trainings was ethics. It was things to do. And I think that's sometimes where the meditative path best begins. Like Shinzen has said, people have come to him and said, I want to learn to meditate. And he says, well, you're drunk all the time. Like maybe do AA for a year, put the cork in the bottle, and then come back to me. Right? It's like they have to clean up part of their life before they're ready to even do a simple concentration technique, much less a full insight practice. Sometimes cleaning off our desk, getting enough sleep, handling that project at work, clearing the space in our life is actually having that difficult conversation where we apologize or we tell someone, we draw a boundary with someone. Sometimes that's the first step towards having a clear mind, besides our formal technique. So, there is in Buddhism something called the perfections. In Southeast Asia and South Asia, they're called the paramis, and in parts of East Asia and Tibet, where they use Sanskrit as their religious language, is called the paramitas. Again, something you can look up on the internet if you care to. So the South Asians have 10 of them, the North Asians have 6 of them, and 5 of them overlap. But for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to take all 11 as a list. So one parami is jhana, which means, or jhana, which means concentration and focus. It means a mind that you're able to set it on something and it stays there. So this is seen as something to cultivate on the spiritual path, something we want to work on. How does that pertain to the workplace? If someone's talking to us, deeply listen to them, instead of thinking of response, for example. I think, we can focus our mind on the breath, but we can also get very focused on a spreadsheet. Intentionally say, this thing I'm working on, I'm going to give it my full attention. Then there's adhitthana, which means resolve, determination, vow, aspiration. So in a spiritual sense, it's like, I'm going to stop drinking, or I'm going to meditate half an hour every day for the next month, or I'm going to tell the truth, or I'm going to visit every lecture my teacher has. These are great vows a person can have on their spiritual path. We can also have that in the workplace. I'm going to finish this project by the end of the week. You might not feel quite as spiritual, but to set a goal and achieve a goal. This is actually a spiritual practice. It requires us to grow beyond ourselves. It requires us to extend ourselves. Then there's virya, which means energy, vigor, enthusiasm, diligence, effort. I can tell you, living in Zen monasteries, the request and requirement is that you do everything with full energy, that you pour yourself fully into it, that you dive in with both feet, whatever it is that you're doing. Can we do that in the workplace? Maybe we hate our job. Maybe we think our corporation's exploiting us. But you're there. You've taken on being an employee, right? Or if you work for yourself, it's this business is your endeavor. Can you give yourself over to it fully? Bring energy and vigor to it. Then there's metta or maitri, which means loving kindness, friendliness, goodwill, something to cultivate on the spiritual path. Can you bring a cup of coffee to a coworker who's having a hard day? Can you listen to a coworker who's having a hard day, or a client? Can you ask your coworker, hey, I'm going out for lunch, can I pick you up something? Can you take the time to socialize and enjoy your coworkers' company with an open heart? Then there's Dana, generosity and giving. My company is always having blood drives. We're having cans for the cans of food for the needy. We have campaign for the community where we give portion of our salary to charity. So they make opportunities for us to have Dana. Can you take on an extra project to help out the team? Can you create a resource that the whole team can make use of for shared knowledge? Generosity. Then there's Kanti, which means patience or tolerance or forbearance or acceptance. If you're hungry and you're in a meeting, can you accept that hunger? If you didn't get enough sleep last night because the baby was crying all night, because you stayed up playing video games, can you accept that tiredness, the bagginess in your eyes and the pain in your limbs? You just be like, this is the way it is. I'm going to have tolerance for this. If over your cubicle wall people are talking animatedly about something, I mean, you could ask them, could you have this conversation elsewhere? Or you could just tolerate it. You could notice how you're contracting and choose to stay open. It's okay. They're talking. They're just people. It's what people do. It's okay. You're allowed to be annoyed. That's okay too. You can accept that. Then there's sila, virtue, morality, proper conduct. So, it's as simple as don't steal from the company. Don't have an affair in the office. Don't come into work drunk. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you what your ethical system should be, but whatever it is, to be in accord with that. There's nekema, which means renunciation, doing without. So an example would be bring your own lunch. Maybe it's nice to go out for lunch and have a treat, but you find that you could use that extra money. So make some food at home. Do without that special catered lunch or that special lunch you get from the restaurant. Don't play games on your phone during the day or use your phone at all. Have a couple hours where you just focus on your work and don't check your email. It takes a certain amount of discipline and renunciation to do practices like that. There's saka, which is truthfulness or honesty. That's not intentionally misleading people. Remember, I was quitting a job that I'd had for a couple of years to go live in a monastery. And I thought I would tell them a couple of weeks early, even though I knew I was going to do it 2 months early. One of my Zen teachers said he felt it was not proper Buddhist behavior to know I was going to quit a job and not tell them so that they could find my replacement. That he felt part of truthfulness was telling them as soon as I knew. And I was scared they would let me go early. They didn't. They actually had time then to find someone for me. So in the end, I felt good about that truthfulness. So that might not be something that everyone wants to do. Maybe there are consequences to letting employers know 2 or 3 months early, but that to me felt like a good practice of saka. Then there's panya or prajna, which is wisdom, seeing through the game, seeing that there's something cosmic happening beyond our small concerns as we go through our day, keeping a loose grip. Remembering the big picture. Remembering that even if we fall flat on our face during a presentation or don't get a deliverable done, there's 300 billion trillion quintillion stars in this universe. It doesn't matter that much. Being in the eternal as we are in the relative. There's upekkha, equanimity and serenity. So your company might have layoffs, say, and it's just like it is what it is. Either they'll lay you off and you'll deal with it, or they won't. In which case, you'll keep having a job. I don't know. There's all sorts of things to be serene about in the workplace and not get worked up about, right? I mean, if you have emotions, you have emotions. We can have equanimity with them, too. So again, I asked my teacher, Gil, I said to him, what have you learned about mindfulness in the workplace? What can you tell me? And he said, well, I've been a Buddhist teacher my whole life. I haven't had office jobs. I've lived in monasteries and then taught. So I don't have direct experience, but I can tell you with my students, a lot of it has to do with talk and conversation in the workplace. And he said a big challenge students seem to have is gossip and talking behind people's back. Once people get on the spiritual path, that's something they want to not do, and they can feel left out. He's noticed that's a commonality with something that people come to him. So there's a whole lot of paramitas involved in that. There's loving kindness. You don't want to be someone that gossips. That's not kind. There's ethics, speaking with kindness, speaking with intentionality. There's renunciation. I personally like talking behind people's back. I like, getting the dope and giving people my analysis of other people. So it takes a certain amount of renunciation to not do that. And there's honesty. So there's many workplace issues that combine various of the 11 paramitas. So that's my presentation. Those are my thoughts on the matter, what I've noticed and found. I want to say I don't live any of this perfectly, but it's aspirational, and it's something I wish to share. And Cho, if you can put us into Q&A mode, I'm open. A reminder, press *6 if you'd like to speak, if you'd like to share. And you're welcome just to make a statement. You don't have to ask a question. You can just share something you've noticed or a thought that you have, and feel free to ask a question as well. I'm curious if anyone has practiced mindfulness in the workplace, dual awareness, or taking breaks and had good experiences with it or difficult experiences with it. If anyone has come up against other issues where maybe your intentionality as being someone on the path has come up against who you are in the workplace, and there's been practice there.
Hey, Adam, can you hear
me? Yes, sir. Barely.
Trying to get closer. How about now?
A little bit better.
Okay, I'll just try to talk loud.
Please.
I'm also a coder too, and I really related to what you were talking about with kind of sitting at I use Python, and meditating, and people walking by me like, oh, he's really focused. I had a question about specifically the use of headphones and music in podcasts. So often I'll treat myself to, if I have a very monotonous task, similar to what you said with transferring, a number from one Excel sheet to another, of listening to a podcast. And there's some days where it's pleasurable, and then some days where it's not pleasurable. It's almost kind of random like that. And I know that's a good opportunity to practice, dual mindfulness. How disciplined are you when it comes to listening to music, podcasts, in the workplace for a job like ours?
Okay, so as I understand it, you work as a coder. There's times where to be able to focus on what you do, you listen to music. And other times, if what you're doing is really mindless, you listen to spoken words and podcasts. So you're wondering, those don't seem like awareness of the body. So what are my thoughts about that? Do I understand you correctly?
Yes. You interpreted that perfectly.
Great. Awesome. I will say I do not practice with dual awareness very much while working on a computer. It's not something I've ever gotten in the habit of doing. I think sometimes when I work on difficult emotional emails, I'll be aware of my body because I kind of have to untangle the emotions. Besides that, when I'm coding, I don't. I practice body awareness in meetings, one-on-ones and group meetings. It helps me be more calm and have my words be more intentional and have me feel less tense. Much of my mindfulness practice in the workplace is taking breaks, especially for walking meditation. So I talked about dual awareness. I don't do it terribly much while coding. I have pretty raging ADHD, which is, I think, what drew me to meditation in the first place, especially Shinzen's system. By his own admission, he probably has had some experience, some history with that. And so some of these things I'm talking about, like the Pomodoro technique, taking breaks to be in bodily motion, there are also things that are highly recommended for ADHD people. And one thing that a lot of ADHD in the workplace books say is listen to music while you work as a way of tuning out other employees. So I do that nonstop. I constantly listen to music. I think when I was younger, for my 20s and 30s, I listened to a lot of psychology and spirituality on spoken word. And that was really something I tried to bring as a practice. And that's a great practice by itself, apart from just simple mindfulness of what is knowledge. That's, you know, I consider growing in knowledge of techniques of opening and paradigms of self to be an important part of my path. So I looked forward to stupid tasks that were kind of mindless, because then I could listen to, back then it was a cassette tape of John Bradshaw or Pema Chodron or something. So I think that's a great practice. I think it's easy during a work day, if listening to podcasts and coding all day, to be caught in concepts, to be caught in the mind. And I think it's important then to balance that with social time, where you're in the flow of engagement with other people, with exercise to be in the body, and especially mindfulness of the body. And for me, taking a break to feel the soles of my feet grounds me back into my body, grounds me back into being, gets me away from concepts and words. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I can tell you that's my experience. That's what comes to mind in terms of what you brought up.
No, I related to a lot of that, actually. I also have ADHD, but I do find that sometimes if I'm plugged in for too long over a period of time and I take my headphones off, I'm all of a sudden like, oh, like all the sounds are just like richer, and I'm like, why was I plugged in for so long? And so I think it depends on the day, but I do try to do lots of walks and talk to other coworkers when I can.
Great.
So
sounds great. So you go on, please.
No, go ahead.
So you find that you listen to music for a while, and then you take your headphones off, and actually the sounds around you are actually pleasant, or you feel like a deep, rich experience of them, and then you question yourself, why was I tuning that out? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Can you say more about that, please, or what you notice, or what interpretation you make of that? Because that's kind of an interesting new concept for me.
Yeah. So I'll listen to like music, and I do it mostly to drown other people around me. I'm in a cubicle.
Yeah.
And when you do it for several hours, or you're, listening to music, you're staring at a computer, and then you take it off, it's almost like this sense of being brought into reality. And it's I don't know, that unplugging feeling. It's hard to describe in words. Feels good. Where it's almost like, should I have been unplugged the whole time? Or at least maybe do it more often than I do sometimes. It's really hard to describe in words, though.
I mean, I'll tell you my take on what you're saying, which may or may not be relevant. I think when we're trying to, on the spiritual path, we're trying to wake up to reality. And reality is people. Reality is the larger workplace than just our own concerns around us, right? So there's something wonderful about feeling the whole room around us with all the other people with their conversations and what they're doing. There's a feeling of not being locked in a trance, but actually being connected. And I think that's great. I can tell you for myself, with my work style, I can't really concentrate very well if there's people walking in front of me and sounds. And for me, often listening to music is requisite to getting lost in my work such that I get it done. I think, classically, I don't know how interesting this is to non-ADHD people, but ADHD is not attention deficit, it's attention variability, such that attention can get very scattered or very focused. And, this is why sometimes we can get a lot done in short periods of time, because we get incredibly focused. And there's something, when we talk about meditation theory, there's something a little unhealthy about getting that focused, such that your attention is that narrowly laser beamed. But, there's plenty that's not ideal about ADHD, and what can you do? That's part of the deal. I'm sorry, say that again, please.
you kind of have to roll with it sometimes. Like if you have to get work done, you have to get work done.
Indeed. I want to say something about that subject, which is, I talked about the 3 trainings earlier, which is ethics, and then concentration, and then insight. That's sort of the path, classically in Buddhism. And some people, who don't know much about meditation, they think meditation is concentration. You be aware of your breath, you go into a trance, you block out the outside world, you have no thoughts, your mind gets very placid, and people get frustrated when they start to meditate or try and learn. They say, I can't clear out my thoughts. To which, Shinzen says, many teachers say, well, you don't have to get rid of your thoughts, you just have to not get caught in them. So concentration is not considered the end result of meditation, despite in the popular imagination sometimes it is. Concentration is viewed as a tool. And what I've heard some meditation teachers say is concentration can actually be a negative thing. Having a mind that's really able to focus, it's very helpful to liberate the mind, because then you're aware of what you're aware of. And you can choose to place your awareness someplace that then you can help liberate by full and deep awareness of that thing. However, as people say, you can get fully concentrated on a TV show. It's not just the breath or the mantra or something wholesome. You can get, they say a sniper gets super concentrated on their target. And so it is with our work. It's not necessarily good, it's not necessarily bad to get very concentrated on a project. If we cultivate that as a skill, then it's a skill we can transfer to our spiritual lives, and it helps us get stuff done. So it's good in that way. But it's not necessarily spiritual. It's not necessarily not. It's just something that we do sometimes, and sometimes that we don't. It's nice to be able to meditate, develop the skill of concentration, and help that be more efficient. I mean, we need to pay the rent, so it's good to be efficient in our job. But bottom line, concentration isn't necessarily great. It's not necessarily bad on the spiritual path. It's a tool.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Thank you. The line is open, as Shinzen says.
I just wanted to thank you. I'm pretty new. I'm at regular practice. My intellectual exposure goes a lot deeper. And I just started attempting to practice at work and got completely lost in it. So this has been extremely helpful in giving me a map of the territory, so to speak.
Yep. Awesome.
And ADHD, check, and permission to use headphones for music. Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm of a certain age where that would have been unthinkable. So this has been
unthinkable, really like considered socially inappropriate?
Corporately inappropriate. Yeah. Back in the 70s and 80s and even the 90s. So so it's nice to still be in the workplace and watch the flexibility happen.
Yep. So you're new to formal seated practice, although you have read books about meditation, it sounds like you're saying. And concentration during your workday is a challenge, and so listening to music is a great aid, and you remember when that was frowned upon, so it's nice that that's allowed now. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, and I'll just add that bringing up the ADD was really helpful. ADHD was really helpful because I get hyper-focused and don't get up and don't take breaks.
Yep.
So this could change my experience at work in a great way, so I'm really grateful.
Wonderful. Something I've been playing with in the last week is if the thought occurs to me to walk to the other end of the hallway, don't question it. Just do it immediately. Just if I have the thought, maybe now would be a good time, it is. So that's been a wonderful thing for me lately. I also want to say this, I don't know, maybe this gets me in trouble. I think a lot of people with ADHD are drawn to Shinzen's teaching. To me, he has a lot of the classic science. I mean, and he admits it. He's late for lectures a lot. He's brilliant when he goes on his when he starts a lecture, but it goes all over the place. He couldn't concentrate on his schoolwork till he became a meditation master, and then he used that power of concentration to actually master physics and math. He gets very impatient in traffic, and when he was a kid, he couldn't wait to open his gifts and would sometimes open them before Christmas. He's got a lot of the classic signs. So I think I realize now why his teachings 30 years ago were so resonant to me, because they were so perfect for my condition, and they were one thing I found as a holistic cure before I got on medication that really helped me with the situation.
Well, now that I'm too old to take medication, they are essential.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So for anybody else out there, it's like this works.
Yeah, the practice in the morning can create a context of having a stabilization during the day, and then taking a break can help clear out those driver sensations that can create agitation and lead to defocusing onto internet surfing and other, destructive activities. So
I'm pretty regular in the morning, and I'm pretty good with the drive. It's when I hit and I'm pretty good down the hall. I have a habit of disconnecting when I walk through the door. So that will be I think where I'll start, unless you have another suggestion.
Nope, nothing beyond what I've been sharing here. So it sounds great. Sounds like you have some inspiration, some practices, and it's gratifying for me to hear that this made a positive impact for you.
It certainly did. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Got a few more minutes here.
Hi, this is Juju.
Hi, Juju.
Hi, and I just really want to thank you, too. I haven't been able to do the live practice program, and so this was, you covered, I think, some of that material, which was great, and gave me a lot of new things to explore. I did 10-day retreats with Goenka about 28 years ago. I started doing them. And it's funny, it never occurred to me to do the body scan while writing. And I haven't done it I haven't been working with the scan for a long time. So maybe after retreats, when it's just happening automatically all the time, then it probably came up and I did it and forgot. But it was I really enjoyed that you had us try to do that. It was kind of like trying to relearn how to pat my head and rub my stomach. And so you just gave me a lot of new ideas, and also you've inspired me to start doing my bell again, to have it go off like every hour.
Nice.
Just for me to breathe.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That feels great to hear. So you have a tool, a bell that you have in the past had ring every hour to help you tune in, and you had stopped doing that, so you're wanting to do that again.
Yeah.
That sounds good. And so you did a retreat almost 3 decades ago with the body scan, and you'd sort of forgotten about that. So you had a fun time trying to do that while also working on your computer. Is that accurate?
Yeah. And I did many Goenka retreats. I just haven't been doing the body scan technique lately.
Yep. I personally don't really like body scans, but I do find that they have utility in certain circumstances. Like when I teach my sitting group, I often start guided meditations with body scans, just because it's a systematic way to sort of loosen up some tension before starting other techniques.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd never tried to do a body scan while working on a computer before this phone call, this teleseminar, and it actually was a lot harder than I thought, so I'm glad you had some fun with it. And, again, I'm sorry?
I just said, I love it that you had us do that. That was really
I didn't realize it would be so disorienting. And I guess the body scans really, now that I've tried that live with people on the phone, I will say I think the great utility of body scans is while taking a break, because you systematically check in with all parts of your body that may have gotten tense while working without you even aware of it. And it's like I said about Uba Khin, the minister in Burma. It's a great way to clear out tension, or make friends with your tension such that it liberates itself. Love it to death, as Shinzen says, before getting back to work.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to reintroduce you to a practice that sounds like was useful to you in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you, Juju. Anybody else in our last few minutes here? All right, folks. Well, for those of you still on the line, teaching is up there as about the most pleasant and valuable things that I feel like I do with my life, and that requires two things. That requires me, and then it requires people who are there to have me be in the role of teacher. So I feel gratitude for you all for being on this call with me. And, a lot of the things I talked about, the paramitas, the focus out technique, body scans, a lot of the teachers I mentioned, it's all on the internet. So there's always opportunities to learn more and explore more, some of the things that may have felt resonant to you. And the workplace can be such a source of suffering and contraction and low self-esteem and just spiritual closure for so many people that I wish for you openness and that it become a strong part of your path, even more than maybe it already is, such that you start to feel some semblance as you go about your workday of the openness that you feel when on retreat or during a deep sit. So thanks again for being here, and wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Adam. Wonderful.
Well,
thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye,
you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone.